You've likely heard of Aeromexico, Mexico's largest airline and flag carrier. But how Aeromexico is as an airline, particularly regarding its onboard services, might be something you're not familiar with. A recent trip to Guatemala brought me on board Aeromexico for the very first time, and today we're embarking on a 3.5-hour journey from Chicago to Mexico City on the Boeing 737-800. This was the first of 4 flights I took on this trip, so if you've ever wondered what the Aeromexico experience is like in 2023, then this video and those to follow are especially for you. So without any further ado, vámonos and let's go to Mexico City. It's an early start for us this morning, about 3:20 a.m. here at the Sonesta Chicago O'Hare Airport Hotel. Despite only catching about 5 hours of sleep, it was a great stay at the Sonesta, and I surprisingly still felt well rested enough for today's long journey. As expected, the hotel provides free shuttles to O'Hare, and we caught the first one of the day at 3:30. Aeromexico operates out of Terminal 5, the dedicated international terminal. Just as a pro tip, if you ever take a hotel shuttle to O'Hare, Terminal 5 will always be the final stop because the expressway first brings you past Terminals 1, 2, and 3 before getting to Terminal 5. Around 37 airlines currently operate from Terminal 5, but of course at 3:45 in the morning, not much is happening and it was bizarre to see T5 this empty. Aeromexico's check-in counters are located in Zone 5E, and it's recommended to reach the airport about 3 hours before your flight. Now, Aeromexico does indeed offer web check-in through their website or mobile app, but in my experience, neither are very good options. First of all, both can be very slow to load, and because some of the English is directly translated from Spanish, the formatting and wording is a bit off sometimes. Also, because of my soon-to-expire passport, I couldn't check in online anyway, but more on that later. Now today, I'm flying in Clase Turista, which is Aeromexico's version of economy class. I'm actually on a basic fare ticket, but Aeromexico Basic Economy is not nearly as bad as any US carrier basic economy. Aeromexico basic fares include a free personal item and a free carry-on bag up to 23 pounds or 10 kilograms. As expected, however, checked bags and seat selection are not included, so you will have to pay extra for those. Thankfully, I'm only traveling with 2 bags, so these counted for both my free personal item and carry-on. However, because I am traveling in a group to Guatemala for humanitarian work, one of my teachers requested that I check in one of her bags filled with school supplies and whatnot. This was an extra $40 that I paid the day before on the Aeromexico website, so once I arrived at the counter, it wasn't much of a hassle. I was pretty worried about how check-in would go, primarily because of the fact that my passport expires in October. Generally, a common rule of thumb for international travel is that your passport must be valid for at least 6 months, but this rule isn't enforced by all countries. Both Mexico and Guatemala, and actually most Central American countries, only require you to have a valid US passport. They don't really care about the 6-month validity. But still, just to make sure I would be okay to fly, I had called Aeromexico the day before to verify they would still accept my passport, and they did. Check-in at the airport was much easier than expected with very friendly and helpful staff. The next order of business was to clear security. Aeromexico does indeed participate in TSA PreCheck, but the really dumb thing about this is that you can't enter your known traveler number on your reservation. I had to call Aeromexico just to add my PreCheck number, which is another thing I really didn't like about this airline. Even though the call center staff are really awesome and helpful, there are so many menus when you call Aeromexico that even calling them makes it an unnecessarily tedious process. Security was cleared within 10 minutes, and now it was off to gate M16. Now, even though it's still pretty early in the morning, Terminal 5 sees a lot of domestic flights departing during this time from Delta and Southwest. As I've covered before, Terminal 5's renovation is well underway, but the waiting lounge for gates M15 through M17 is already renovated and looks beautiful. Our flight this morning is AM 689, already the 6th Mexico-bound flight of the day. Now, most of Aeromexico's planes are registered in Mexico. However, a significant amount are also registered in Ireland and the US, including our 737 today, which carries an American registration. Aeromexico typically starts boarding around 45 minutes before departure. Boarding is done in zones numbered 1 through 5, but I could never really figure out how zones 3 through 5 were determined. Even though I have a basic ticket, I'm still boarding today in zone 3, while on my connecting flight to Guatemala, I boarded in zone 5. Now, one really annoying thing about Aeromexico's boarding process that I noticed on literally all 4 flights I took with them is this. Every single time, there was an additional 5 to 10 minute wait just in the jetway because of how slow the lines move. If you're gonna let more people board, then at least ensure the jetway isn't clogged so everyone can get straight onto the aircraft. But please let me know what you think about this. The vast majority of Aeromexico's 737-800 fleet is in a 2-class configuration with 16 Clase Premier business class seats and 144 in economy. There are also 6 additional 737-800s with all economy class configurations, but these are only used on select domestic flights within Mexico. Today I'll be seated in 23A, which I paid $26 to reserve thanks to my basic ticket. The seats are pretty comfortable with adjustable headrests and good padding. Ignoring the fact that there's literally a diarrhea medicine ad playing, each seat comes with a touchscreen entertainment monitor with the headphone jack and USB port. Of course, there's a tray table and below that a large seat pocket with a smaller one reserved for the safety card. Legroom isn't anything special, I thought it was fine, but if you have a large bag in front, it could get a bit tight. Above all seats are the usual reading lights, air vents, and call buttons.
Este avión cuenta con 8 salidas de emergencia, 2 en la parte posterior, 4 sobre el ala y 2 al frente. Algunas salidas están equipadas con un tobogán. Antes de usarlo, deberás quitarte los zapatos. Localiza la más cercana a tu asiento sobre el ala y 2 al frente.
This aircraft has 8 emergency exits, 2 in the rear, 4 over the wing, and 2 in the front. Some exits are equipped.
Aparatos electrónicos están permitidos si se encuentra en modo avión.
You may now use your electronic devices in flight mode.
En preparación para el despegue.
Another common theme on my Aeromexico flights was the fact that the seatbelt sign was always turned off after passing 10,000 feet. Turns out this is a lot more common in the world than I initially thought, but I thought it was weird at first considering, at least here in the US, I've never seen the seatbelt sign get turned off until we reach cruise altitude. Another really off thing about today's flight was the fact that the cabin lights remained on during takeoff. I'm pretty sure the lights have to be dimmed for both takeoff and landing just as a safety concern, but maybe because it's not a nighttime flight, the crew didn't bother. Aside from various ads and the safety video screening, most of the entertainment screens on this aircraft weren't working. An announcement was made that the crew were trying to reset the system, but it seems like that didn't work, which was a huge disappointment. The tray tables on the 737-800 are a standard size and also extendable. There's no drink holder like you'd expect, but all Aeromexico tables seemingly have a coconut water ad placed on them, which I thought was a bit funny. My table was also noticeably dirty, so I was really thankful to have had a sanitizing wipe on me so I could wipe it down. Aeromexico flights do feature in-flight Wi-Fi, but on the 737-800, the Wi-Fi is pretty bare bones. The Wi-Fi site only has options to purchase internet access, check flight progress, and destination weather. I appreciate being able to convert between Fahrenheit and Celsius, but this weather tool is probably the most sophisticated feature on this website. In terms of internet access, you can buy a 1-hour pass for 115 pesos, or roughly $7. A full flight pass costs 380 pesos or $22, while an all-day pass is 495 pesos or $29. There are also entertainment streaming passes, a 1-hour that costs 190 pesos or $11, and a full flight pass for 535 pesos or $31. That's literally the extent of the entertainment on this flight. Because the Wi-Fi doesn't support free streaming entertainment, there was really no form of entertainment on this flight besides looking out the window. I guess the only thing about the IFE that I could control was the brightness, volume, and turning it on or off. Ironically enough, the crew still came around passing out earphones. Like what am I supposed to use these for? The earphones themselves are super cheap looking, and the sound quality, as I found out on later flights, isn't that great. I found it hilarious how the packaging literally says, "Do not remove from the aircraft." Of course, I left them on board, but that really makes me wonder what they do with these earphones if passengers aren't supposed to take them. Once the turbulence subsided just a little bit, the breakfast service commenced a little over 90 minutes into the flight. Breakfast trays and drinks were handed out separately, but to drink this morning, I went for apple juice. The breakfast tray consisted of a fresh fruit cup, bread roll, fruit and nut mix, strawberry yogurt, butter and strawberry jam, plastic cutlery, and the main course. There were two choices for the main this morning, an omelet or French toast. Because the omelet was served with pork and I can't eat pork, I went with the French toast, which may seem a bit dry, but in all honesty, I thought the sweetness level was just right and overall, very delicious. Despite being served quite late into the flight, this was a great breakfast. The French toast portion was a bit small for my liking, but I think that was compensated for with the various accompaniments. The fruit truly tasted fresh, and the yogurt and bread were good to have as well. Aeromexico 737-800s don't have any power outlets in economy, so your best bet would be the USB port. Unfortunately, the port at my seat was very loose, so it was really easy for my cable to slide out. Also, it seems that as we entered over the Gulf of Mexico, the Wi-Fi connectivity was lost, and I never bothered to check if the signal ever came back later in the flight. Shortly before beginning our descent, I finally decided to get up and use one of two lavatories in the back of the plane. Looking down the aisle, it's apparent that not all seats had faulty entertainment systems. It seems that some passengers were actually able to watch something or look at the moving map, which was good for them. The bathroom itself was fine, there was nothing much to report on. Thankfully, despite being heavily used throughout the flight, it wasn't super dirty. Also, if you have any questions on the attire I'm wearing, my friend actually dared me to wear one of my kurtas for this flight. While I didn't have any security problems in Chicago, I did get secondary screening done in Mexico City, but that's another story. Once I returned to my seat, it wasn't long before we started our descent into Mexico City. This was my first time back in Mexico in 11 years, and also my first time in Mexico City. Our approach brought us in from the northeast before turning right and flying westbound for a short while. We then made a left turn to fly over Mexico City and its surrounding areas before turning base and coming into land on runway 05 right. And there we have it. Bienvenidos a la Ciudad de Mexico. This ticket on Aeromexico set me back just shy of $680 as a round trip from Chicago to Guatemala City via Mexico City. So how was my experience on Mexico's flag carrier? In short, it was good. The check-in process, on-time performance, food, seat, and crew were all plus points. That's not to say that there were no setbacks, absolutely not. The inoperable in-flight entertainment was the biggest, but the flight was only 3 hours long, so that's not such a big deal. I guess most of the negative parts of my Aeromexico experience today happened outside of the flight, the issues that I faced with the website and inefficient boarding, to name a few. So based on what I experienced today, I would give this Aeromexico flight from Chicago to Mexico City a 7.6 out of 10, and you can find the full breakdown of this rating in the description below.
Estimados pasajeros, les solicitamos permanecer sentados. Safe and pleasant travels.
Upon arrival in Mexico City, all international arriving passengers must clear immigration, but the whole transit process I will explain in full detail in the next episode. Thanks so much for tuning in, and if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe if you're new for the next upcoming videos from this insane trip to Guatemala. With that being said, gracias una vez más y hasta la próxima. Adiós.